Hello, mixtresses and mixters. This is Mixtress Ray, and you're watching Mixtress Video. Full disclosure, I am re-recording this video. I already recorded it once, and I ended up getting real philosophical at the end, which I will try to do again, but I'm gonna try to word it better this time. Anyway, I'm a booger queen, so I always tell people my process. I'm a process queen. Okay. So first I'm going to light the candle, which was brand new in the last video, but that's fine. It's not brand new anymore, but neither are we. Okay, so what this was supposed to be before I got super philosophical, and probably will again, is I'm doing a VR to Casper from BoyDiviner channel for my favorite card backs. So I'm doing my top 5 Oracle card backs and my top 5 tarot card backs, and then there's an honorable mention at the end. So I'm going to see if I can be a little bit more eloquent this time. I'm drinking some coffee out of my beautiful Ursula mug. I don't like to advertise for Disney, but I do love Ursula. Okay, so these card backs are in no particular order. I found that this is from Shadowscapes. I found that with tarot card backs, I prefer a backing that is reversible, even though I don't really read with reversals, which is funny. Like, I prefer a reversible card back for tarot, but I don't care if it's reversible with Oracle. And I also have found that I really like this sort of portal feeling that a lot of tarot card backs have. This kind of more crystallographic image that draws you into the center of it. Like for me, like the energy of say you're laying out a spread and you've got all these little circles. They're portals that are drawing you in to flip it over, you know? This one I think is gorgeous. This particular shade of purple reminds me of my best friend from high school. And just the fae energy of this deck reminds me of her too. So it's one of the reasons why I love Shadowscapes in general, because it reminds me of one of my favorite friends. So I just think it's gorgeous. This one is one that I'll warn you, it can kind of play tricks with your eyes a little bit. So if you're prone to optical images kind of bugging you, skip ahead a little bit. But this is the first edition of Wild Unknown. Again, it's got that portal energy of drawing you into the center. And I like that it's kind of a, how do I want to say this? Like a geometrical interpretation of a tree stump. You know, that sort of it has that feeling for me. I much prefer this back to the later editions of Wild Unknown. This is one of the reasons why I had to find a first edition of the Wild Unknown, because I preferred these backs. And I got super lucky. I found one on eBay that was still in the wrapping. It was new and it was $15. Plus $5 shipping, so I guess it was $20. But this one is Moonchild, and this one's funny that I like this one so much because 2 of my least favorite colors, and color is important to me, are white and gold. And this has gold foiling, and it's a white card. But I like this sort of parting the veil sort of feeling with this card. I like looking at it in landscape. I like that it's kind of a modern interpretation of ancient Egyptian imagery. I like the nod to moon phases here. I do think it's a really pretty card back, even though white and gold are 2 of my least favorite colors. But people really like gold. So it ends up being on several of these card backs. This one is Tarot of the Divine. What I like about this, not only is it symmetrical and beautiful and has, again, a nod to moon phases, but it also has all the elements in the card. Like there's the cup right here, the pentacle right here. This little part of the border comes up into kind of like a little baby flame. So I think that's a wand. And then you have the sword here. And then this kind of like somewhat Celtic looking imagery here. It's just a gorgeous card back. It really is. And even the kind of like shape of this kind of like tear in the void situation right here kind of looks vaginal to me, which also I enjoy. You're being drawn in, man. Being drawn into Kundalini energy. I wish that the vibe that you get from the back of Tarot of the Divine was reflected in the imagery throughout the deck a little bit more. Sort of this darker, deeper, more jewel-toned color story that is on the back here is not really reflected within most of the color stories on the card fronts. And I just think that's a little bit of a miss, but that's just because like color is super important to me. And this one is possibly my very, very favorite card back. This is Santa Muerte. I like the kind of Aztec vibes in the background. I like the flowers. I like the skulls and the fact that there's like little skulls on the side. I like this unique border that this deck has of like not going around the entire image, and on the card fronts the borders only cover the bottom half, and I think that's really cool and unique. I haven't ever seen anything like that. I like it. Like, I don't need to have borderless cards, but I like when the borders are aesthetically in line with the consistency of the deck and unique. So these borders are cool because it's like half of a borderless card and then half of, yeah, I like it. The only thing that bothers me in this particular deck, and I don't have an example of this since I just pulled one card aside for each of these, is that I don't like that the numbers are on the side. I wish that they were still vertical, because when you get to like the 6s and 9s in the minor arcana, it's hard to know which it is. Like, you have to turn it to this side, and in my brain it should be like this, but that's just because and most likely most people think to turn it this way to see the upright. I hope that makes sense. Whatever, it doesn't matter. Love this card back. Now my top 5 Oracle card backings. This is Isis Oracle. Again, a bunch of gold and beige, which are 2 of my least favorite colors again. But this particular deck I did like an intensive study with. I had the whole deck out on my altar and I picked a card from it every day until I had gone through the entire deck. And so it was just, this deck was sitting out on my altar that entire time. And it was, especially with like when I would choose the cards at night with like the subdued warm lighting that I have on that particular table, it made this deck feel really special. I don't know, just looking at these card backs, like card backs are important, especially if you're the type of person that likes to take your decks out and keep them out of boxes. You're going to be looking at the backs in that case a lot. And this one I think is really beautiful, and it goes with the theme of this deck being sort of like, this deck is a deep dive into some really spiritual, deep and dark explorations of self. Like, you can really get deep with this deck, and I feel like looking at this card back, you get that. You get that this is going to be a deep experience. I don't know, maybe I'm being a little too, I don't know, esoteric, but whatever. This one is a Minty Oracle. I like this one because this is like the most Libra deck ever. You know, it's about the 42 principles of Ma'at. It's about like the end of your life. You're balancing your heart against a feather, not only because you want to be a good person and you want to not have anything that has weighed your heart down, anything that you've done to be unkind to others, but also don't take life too seriously. And like, is there a more Libra card back than this? I mean, and also I'm obsessed with hands. I don't know why. I just am. Like, I love hands. So this card back is pretty amazing to me. And I like the kind of the black background with sort of the neon looking outlines. Love this. Natalie Ray Miller, I think, is the artist for this particular deck. I really like her art a lot. Again, there's more hands. I hope that she does a tarot deck at some point, because she's like one of my very favorite artists and I'm obsessed. This is probably my favorite oracle deck. Maybe, like, it's not a good like general oracle deck. It's more about like focusing on morality and principles to live by, and kind of like, so it's not, I don't use it as a general oracle deck, so I wouldn't want it to be the only deck that I have, but it's still probably my favorite. This one is a yogic path oracle. Again, we have gold foiling, but it works in this context. This is such a gorgeous, again, you have hands. I love the turquoise. Beautiful. Beautiful card back. I will say something about gold foiling though. It tends to like give the cards a weird bend to them, which can sometimes be annoying, but whatever. Cards are meant to be used and bent and, you know, damaged, and yeah, they're meant to go with you on your life journey, you know? It's okay if they are bent. This one is Oracle of Shadows and Light. I like the, I don't know, I think this is one that's just like, since I usually with this particular deck, because it's more of a deep dive kind of psychological shadow work, I say in quotes, kind of deck. So I only really pick one card at a time. And it's nice to kind of have that, this sort of like keyhole aspect of like, you are the key that is going to unlock what this image has to show you. So I like that aspect of it. Then, it's funny, this one's going to be the last one. This is the cheesiest card back that I love, and it is from Halloween Tarot. I just love it. Like, the evil little, like, devil cauldron, the ghost, the bat, the cat, the witch hat with the little spider. Like, I love cheesy stuff, you know? I really do. And this one is very cheesy. Also very shiny. You can see the reflection of my phone, which is what I used to tape. Okay, so those are my top 5 of both tarot card backs and oracle card backs. And then the honorable mention. So the honorable mention is just regular Smith weight. I like just how iconic just a simple plaid back is, and I also like that originally, I think the newer editions, so if you have a pretty recent edition of the Smith weight Rider Tarot, I don't think that this is true for those, but for like the older versions, as you can see, it is not the exact same piece of the pattern in every card, if that makes sense. I don't know how to word that, but it's not the exact same image over and over. It's just the exact same pattern cut out of one big sheet for the cards. So it's, you know, like this little corner is different from this little corner, is a different part of the pattern because they were all just cut out of one sheet of plaid. And I really like that. And it's not something that you necessarily notice But once you do notice it, I don't know, for me it just feels special. I don't know why, but it just does, because it's like it's an image that is both reversible and it's not actually the exact same on every single card. You know, it's going in the same direction. And I guess maybe it's not reversible because it's going this direction if it's reversed and this direction if it's not. But you don't necessarily notice that when you're flipping through. No, it looks the same. It looks the same. I don't even know what I'm talking about. It looks the same. Okay, never mind. That was useless. Okay, so here's where I get into the sort of philosophical discussion, which was in the original video, I picked a card at random from this deck. I'm going to pick that same card intentionally again. Seven of Swords. So I started talking about kind of the philosophical arguments surrounding intention. Like, one thing that's always sort of been hard for me to wrap my mind around with the Seven of Swords is you don't know. You don't know what this guy's intentions are. You don't know if he's stealing swords from someone else or if he's taking back what's rightfully his. You don't know. And the thing that is sort of like being unlocked for me in this moment is there's so much of life that is like that. I think, me personally, I place a little bit too much importance on intentions. Like, when I'm having a conversation with someone, I do not hold as much importance on the literal words that they're saying as I do on how I feel their intentions are coming across. That's not the right way to word that, but like, I am more concerned with reading in between the lines of what they're saying and finding how they really feel and what kind of person they really are. And if I can't get a good read on the authenticity of a person, it's like I'm more likely to want to be friends with a person that I find to be representing themselves authentically than I'm trying to re-record this because I didn't say it right the first time and I'm still not saying it right. I'm more drawn to a person's authenticity than I am to what they actually say, as long as they are a person that I know is kind and a person that I know wants to do right and wants to put themselves in an uncomfortable position in order to do the best that they can. I want a person to be doing the best that they can. There's this Fiona Apple lyric. I know I'm always bringing up Fiona Apple lyrics. Apparently that's a big part of my tarot practice is Fiona Apple lyrics. But there's this, one of my very favorite songs of hers is called Waltz. And I just love the whole feeling in that song. But one of the lyrics is, if you don't have a point to make, don't sweat it. You'll make a sharp one being so kind. And I'd sure appreciate it. That's the whole lyric. I just, like, I get chills and I want to cry every time I think about that lyric because I think that's such an important thing to remember. One of the things that I was thinking about that I talked about the first time I recorded this video is I had this weird realization the other day, and I'm still kind of working out like what this realization is. It's just sort of the beginnings of an idea. So this is just kind of like a conversation in process. But I had this thought back after the election of 2016, which I live in America. You probably can tell by my Midwest accent. After the election of 2016, I really, and I'm sure many of the rest of you had similar feelings. I felt personally attacked and victimized by everyone in my life and everyone just in general that voted for our current president, which I don't like saying his name. Sometimes I will do it, but not today. Because I view him just at the base level. I view him to be an extremely unkind person that does not does not care about anyone but himself. So even the best possible outcome, if he was a good leader, if he still made decent decisions in order to support the lives of his constituents, which of course he does not, but if he did, I would still not trust him and not think that he is a good person. And I felt so fearful and so attacked, and so just I took it very personally to find out that anyone in my life could have voted for someone that I think unequivocally is a terrible human being. But I had this weird realization the other day, because I've, of course, as I'm sure a lot of you are experiencing as well, I've been having a lot of fear leading up to our 2020 election. I am terrified. I am terrified, and I'm sure a lot of you guys are as well. But one of the things, and it's possible this is motivated from a space of coping mechanism for myself, one of the things I've been thinking about is I've been trying to kind of mentally prepare myself for the worst. I don't want that to happen. I want everybody to go out and vote with your heart for someone that might make better decisions for the people that they will serve. I hope for the best, and I still think we can do it. But I've been trying to prepare myself, because I was not at all prepared in 2016. I had no idea that I don't want to say negative. I just don't want to be in a negative space, but I had no idea. And I had this thought the other day, and again, I still don't know exactly what it means, or if it's even going to come across as a coherent thought. But I just had this realization that I think it's generally true that most people en masse are not very smart. And it is also true that most people en masse are generally kind. I am in the unique position that I live in a town that was completely destroyed by a tornado almost 10 years ago now. And I personally saw the biggest outpouring of kindness from almost every human being at that time. Absolutely almost everyone wanted to help and would do whatever they could to help you. People that are total strangers would come over to your house and help you gather together the shit that was salvageable and put your life back together. They got in there and they rolled up their sleeves and they got their hands dirty and they helped each other. And this was out of a genuine, pure kindness within them, because they had empathy for others. And this is the majority of people. The majority of people were so kind and helpful. Anyway, so I think that it's simultaneously true that the same people that don't have a lot of critical thinking skills in their lives, for whatever reason, also are generally kind people. And so I think that's just my own way of emotionally coping with the fact that I live in Missouri. So I'm in a state that always goes red. Always. Sometimes it feels pointless to vote, but I still do. So I sometimes, it's weird to have to reconcile those two things. Back in 2011, having such an intense feeling of generosity and gratitude, and seeing people come together and be so kind and help people through such a hard time. The people that were privileged enough to not have their homes destroyed did everything they could, by and large, to help those that were not as fortunate. And those same people in 2016, 5 years later, made the choice to vote for a person that would never extend that kind of kindness to another human being. And it's really hard to, like, the cognitive dissonance there to kind of like reconcile that in your mind. It's kind of like, this is another thing that as a white person, I have had a lot of privilege being white. That, of course, it's invisible privilege if you have it, you know? So a realization that I made, like, probably it's only been like 5 years since I made this very basic realization. But I had this moment where I was like, you know what? I don't know if I can ever completely trust the white people in my life that I love and know to be kind and generous. I don't know if I can ever completely trust them, because they may only be kind and generous to me because I'm also white. And the moment I had that thought, I remember I was like, it's one of those things, you know, like when you have like a weird realization and you remember exactly where you were when it happened. I was in the basement putting my laundry into the dryer when I had this realization. So I know it's been within the last 5 years because it was in the house that I live in now. But anyway, it's kind of that same thing of like, a person can simultaneously vote for a human being that if they actually met and spent time with, they would find to be an abhorrent human being. They can simultaneously feel good about their decision to vote for a person like that, because for whatever reason, their brain isn't taking it that far. It isn't taking it to the level of they're not really thinking about. And I think it kind of has something to do with that lack of critical thinking that I was talking about. And it's sort of like, I don't like to say, it kind of sounds like I'm saying, well, some people are just dumb. Like, but I think some people, for whatever reason, they, you know, as a society, we are taught from the very beginning to fit inside a very specific box. Like, if you're a woman, then you are this. If you are a white woman, you are this. If you are a black man, you are this. And they're very rigid boxes that don't serve anyone. Even if some of those boxes have a lot more privilege built into them, they still don't serve anyone that well, you know? They're not a good story to tell. And some people, for whatever reason, they don't have the strength and critical thinking skills to understand that they've been put in that box to begin with. Or if they understand that it's a box, they don't have the strength to work outside of that box. I don't know what I'm trying to say exactly. But I've been thinking a lot lately about, I've been kind of like steeping myself in a lot of drama channels on YouTube, and like just trying to take in the opinions of a lot of different kinds of people on a lot of different kinds of topics. And I found that I think there's a disconnect with society right now, where we have the opportunity and the privilege to really steep ourselves within whatever worldview we already have. And some of us, like I like to think of myself as part of this us, I put myself in a category of, I really try to evolve the way that I think all the time. I really try to constantly question my beliefs and try to make better decisions and just evolve that. I always want to evolve what I think, and I always want to grow. And I think that white people in general are very, very called. That is our call this year, to listen and grow and be better advocates for anyone that doesn't look like us. It's very important. Like, Black Lives Matter movement is something that is so like important, and it's, what's the word I'm trying, long overdue. That was the phrase I was thinking. It's so long overdue that we take this moment, just like the Me Too movement. That was so fucking long overdue. Like, these things are very important. However, sticking into not choosing not to have difficult conversations. Like for me personally, I work at a public library in Southwest Missouri. Most of the people that I encounter have views very different from my super liberal ones. But I have found that in order to have somewhat productive conversations with people, first of all, I think the most that you can hope for when you're having an uncomfortable conversation with someone that thinks very differently from you, that is not, especially a person that's not really super open to having an uncomfortable conversation, the best way to go at them, the most that you can hope for, first of all, is kind of that, I never really thought about it that way moment. You can't really change someone's mind, but you can plant a seed. You can plant that, I never thought about it that way seed. But the only way you're going to get to that very modest goal, if you're trying to have an uncomfortable conversation with someone that you disagree with, is to come at them with a lot of understanding. I mean, it's a lot of hand holding, and sometimes you just don't have the energy for that, and that's totally fine. But when you do have it, I think it's very good to put yourself in those conversations. And the way that you can do that is you have to make them think, even if you don't believe it, you have to make them think that you think that they're good people. And if they think that you respect them, and if they think that you see them as being on their side to a certain degree, like you can still disagree with them, but make them feel like you at least think they're good people, which I know I'm repeating, but like I'm just trying to like word it in the right way. If you can make them think that, then they will be slightly open to what you have to say. And another thing that I've noticed is make it personal. Like I've actually had a handful of productive conversations with old white guys. Yeah, it can happen. It's like a handful. I've had a handful that have been successful. But I think it's worth trying because those people are a little bit more understanding now. But one of the things that I've found, like making it personal, for example, like sometimes when I'm trying to talk to an old cis white guy about when there's the opportunity to have a conversation about transgender people, what always makes someone listen to me, which me being a woman talking to an old cis white dude, like even being able to say 2 or 3 sentences and have that person listen to you is a feat in and of itself. I'm sure you can understand. I'm sure you know what that's like. But though I have always had success, it's pretty much 100% success rate if I relate it to my own life. Like one time, just for an example, having a conversation about transgender people with this patron that comes into the library. He comes in every week and like sometimes he says some pretty asinine shit, but he's a little bit open to having productive conversations. So it happens every once in a while. And this particular time I had one of those, I never thought about it that way moments. I started by saying, well, you and I, so I'm putting us in the same category, are really lucky, I think, because I have always felt like, and I'm making the assumption that he feels comfortable in his own body, but based on things that he's said before, I can make that assumption. You and I are really lucky because I feel comfortable, like I'm a girl. There's no question for me that I'm a girl. But if I were born in a boy's body and still feeling the way that I do now, I would not be happy. And then they're kind of interested at this point. And then I take it to, I have a friend who's transgender male. So he was born in a woman's body, but he's never felt like a woman. And I've known him since he was 17, since we were both 17 years old. And then I tell that story. about how it felt for me to adjust to that. And it was difficult just because, like, how gendered our thinking is. It was difficult for me to adjust to it at first, not because I was like prejudiced about him or anything like that. It was just, for me personally, I had such an attachment to him as a woman. Which, why? I don't know. But anyway, like, the whole point of that story is just that once you personalize it and say, I have this best friend that I've known since I was 17 years old, and then I tell that story, after I've put us in the same category, you and me are both lucky, because then anyway, if you come at someone with that, and I think those types of conversations, especially for white people, are really important, because we have the opportunity to have somewhat productive debates and arguments with other white people. They will be more open to listening to us if it's not completely prescriptive, if you know what I mean. Like, if it's not like, well, you need to think like this, and you need to be like this, and you need to be like this. And I completely understand where that energy comes from. The anger of marginalized and oppressed people is so valid. But if you find yourself in a moment where you can go beyond the anger and have those difficult conversations with respect and kindness, even towards people that have not always shown you respect and kindness, if you can do it from that space, that's the only way that you're ever going to change someone's mind. I mean, there are so many people in this world that, like, they hated gay people until their son was gay. And now they're huge advocates for gay rights. You know, making things personal and attaching differing worldviews to people that you love and respect, being able to be open. I don't know. I think there's a tendency to get really prescriptive, to tell people that you are a terrible person if you think this. And that kind of talk just shuts people down. Like, we're never going to be able to help open people's minds to making actions that back up their generally good intentions, because I do think that most people have generally good intentions. But in order to back that up with actions, they need kindness. They need nurturing. They need handholding. And is that annoying? Do you always have the energy to do that? Yes, it's annoying. And no, you don't always have the energy to do that. And that's totally fine. It's totally fine if you're not even a person that ever has the energy to do that. But I think it's important. I think it's important to be uncomfortable and have weird conversations and forgive each other for missteps, as long as we are trying our hardest to evolve and to open our minds and to see other people's perspectives and to have empathy. And some of that starts with, we have to, I was going to say forgive, but we don't have to forgive the assholes in our lives. But if we can assume that they're kind people, it will put us in a space to be a little bit more patient with them, and being a little bit more patient with them will help them open their minds a little bit to listen to us, if that makes sense. Yeah, I hope all of this is coming across the right way. I think that we've just gotten in a space as a society where our anger becomes prescriptive. You know, I think I just kind of had sort of an awakening moment with this particular card. We don't know what this person's intentions are. Actions are more important than intentions. I do believe that, but I do think intentions are important. And I think in our society at this current moment, we have tipped the scales so dramatically towards the literal interpretation of the words that someone said and the actions that they have made, that it's just a little imbalanced. It doesn't need to be like 50-50 intention and action. Like, intentions are important. We need to acknowledge intentions, but they're still not as important as the actions that a person takes. I think intentions are kind of like the start of a reparation, right? Like, you can say, I'm sorry, I really didn't mean for this to come across in this way. However, it did. So how do we go forward? Like, you can say, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to make you feel that way, but it did make you feel that way. So what can we do? How can we move forward? I think that's the level that we need to understand intentions. Whereas there seems to be a general feeling of intentions don't matter at all. It's just what you say. It's just what you do. But intentions do matter. And I think the intentions are kind of getting washed away because of the dehumanizing aspect of like social media and things like that. I hope that makes sense. It's like, you don't see the nuance behind a person because you don't personally know them. You're not assuming that they are coming from a good place as a default necessarily. And so I think there's just like a little bit of humanity being taken out of the way that people's actions and words are coming across right now. Whereas I think that aspect of it is important. It's not everything, but it is important. So I hope some of this made some kind of fucking sense. I know I've just been babbling forever, so I'm going to stop now. But thank you guys for listening. Let me know if any of this made any sense, or if you have any thoughts to add, or if you think that I really need to rethink some of these things that I'm saying, because I am totally willing to evolve. Anyway, I hope you guys are having a good day. This was just a weird little Wednesday morning chat. Okay, see you guys next time. Bye.